Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Ramatar, and I'm a member of the Fold planning team, and I'm super excited to be your host for today. This session is called Fractured Fairytales, and it will run until 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. At the end of the panel, we'll have literary trivia on Kahoots, all surrounding fairy tales. The winner will receive books by today's authors, so we do hope that you'll stay on and join us. We are pleased to offer closed caption technology for today's session and for all of our sessions this weekend. We'd also like to thank Simon & Schuster for sponsoring this event. Our festival typically takes place on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional homeland of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee nations. As a festival, we are continuously dedicated in increasing our awareness, understanding, and conscientious action. If you're joining us today and you're not Indigenous, we'd like to encourage you to think about and explore stories written by the first inhabitants of the place where you are living. We invite you to consider the question along with us. How can you embrace the role of listener and learner as you explore matters related to reconciliation and the land that you live on? This virtual space is meant to be a safe space for all guests and panelists. We've closed the chat function to avoid disruptions, but feel free to use the Q&A box, which you'll see at the top or bottom of your screen, to ask questions of our panelists. If you're joining by phone, we're also checking Twitter throughout the event for questions. So feel free to tweet out any questions you have using the hashtag #Fold2020. As I mentioned earlier, this session is called Fractured Fairytales, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Taya Lim. Taya Lim is the author of An Ocean of Minutes, which was shortlisted for the 2018 Scotiabank Giller Prize. Her writing has been published by Granta, The Paris Review, Guardian, and more. She grew up in Singapore and now lives with her family in Toronto, where she's a professor of creative writing. Taya will appear on your screen with our panelists in just a moment. We are going to have each author read a short excerpt from their book, and if there are any glitches during the readings or at any point during the event, hold tight or log back in. We'll also be posting updates on our Twitter page as well, and once the session is over, I'll come back with a few final housekeeping items. For now, please enjoy readings by Mona Awad, Amanda Leduc, and Sandhya Menon.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mona Awad, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to be reading from my novel, Bunny. This is just the first page to give you a taste, so I'm just going to jump right in. We call them bunnies because that is what they call each other. Seriously, Bunny. Example, hi, Bunny. Hi, Bunny. What did you do last night, Bunny? I hung out with you, Bunny. Remember, Bunny? That's right, Bunny. You hung out with me, and it was the best time I ever had. Bunny, I love you. I love you, Bunny. And then they hug each other so hard, I think their chests are going to implode. I would even secretly hope for it from where I sat, stood, leaned, in the opposite corner of the lecture hall, department lounge, auditorium, bearing witness to 4 grown women, my academic peers, cooingly strangle each other hello. Or goodbye, or just because you're so amazing, Bunny. How fiercely they gripped each other's pink and white bodies, forming a hot little circle of such rib-crushing love and understanding, it took my breath away. And then the nuzzling of ski-jump noses, peach fuzzy cheeks, temples pressed against temples in a way that made me think of the labial rubbing of the bonobo or the telepathy of beautiful, murderous children in horror films. All 8 of their eyes shut tight as if this collective asphyxiation were a kind of religious bliss. All 4 of their glossy mouths making squealing sounds of monstrous love that hurt my face. I love you, Bunny. And I'll stop there.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Leduc and I'm going to be reading today from my latest book, Disfigured, on Fairy Tales, Disability, and Making Space. It begins, as all fairy tales do, with a problem. Once upon a time, a woodcutter and his wife lived alone and had no children. Once upon a time, a wealthy man's wife died and he was lonely, so he married another woman who was cruel to his child. Once upon a time, a mermaid, looking out beyond the sea, longed to find herself walking on land. In this case, a mother and father have a 17-month-old daughter who has not yet learned to walk. This is not always a problem. Some children walk sooner and others take their time, but these parents are worried. They read the literature on standard milestones and ask questions of the doctors who tell them not to worry. They whisper the same thing to themselves and each other at night. Don't worry, everything will be okay. They've already lost a child, another daughter, dark-haired and silent, who came into the world already dead. It happened 1.5 years before their second daughter was born. Her ashes sit in a little gray box on their bedroom closet shelf. They are terrified, but also filled with hope. Sometimes it can take a while, they remind themselves. Every child is different. Their second daughter's other milestones are fine. She laughs, she cries, she crawled with no trouble. She eats anything and everything they put in front of her.
Hi everyone, I'm Sandhya Menon and I'm going to be reading from Of Curses and Kisses, which is my boarding school set Beauty and the Beast retelling. So this is just a very short chapter 1. Just outside Aspen, Colorado, nestled between the Sentinel Mountains and an ink blot lake, lies St. Rosetta's International Academy. Its sweeping spires, creeping ivy, and time-worn brick turrets often lead visitors to remark that it looks like a venerable castle from an old European city. The academy would be Princess Jaya Rao's home for the next year. While she was there, Jaya had one mission: break an English nobleman's heart. But first, she had to fall in love with him.
Hi, everybody. I'm Taya Lim. Thank you for those wonderful readings and welcome to Fractured Fairy Tales. I'm so happy to be speaking here today with Mona, Sandhya, and Amanda. So I thought I would start by asking you a question about our current reality. Pandemics sort of have a flavor of fairy tales. A plague falls across the land, and all of us are sort of either in stasis, like Sleeping Beauties, or we're heroes, and there's really no in between. So I'm wondering how being authors who write about and think about fairy tales has kind of equipped you, or maybe even ill-equipped you, for navigating our current situation. Do you want to start us off, Amanda?
Sure. It's tough, right? Because I think the wonderful thing, and I think maybe I fall a little on the side of how fairy tales sort of ill-equip us for these kinds of disasters, especially the more modern interpretations of fairy tales that we know. I think there's a lot riding on hope with them, and this sort of idea that, you know, a narrative has a very sort of predictable, you know, it goes down, but then eventually it comes up. And I think a lot of people are dealing with that sort of shock, especially in especially in Western white circles. I think is definitely the case. A lot of people are dealing with shock because they're sort of trying to figure out how, you know, to pivot and adjust in a world where that sort of standard framework that, you know, drive toward the happy ending is suddenly very much in flux and in question. And I think that sort of narrative sort of tradition of moving toward the happy ending is something that maybe has ill-equipped a lot of us to sort of deal with adversity, because you don't really see an end or a sort of concrete end at the moment.
Like it almost might be more wise to just accept the uncertainty of it than to try to keep saying, well, this is fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's that something that happens with fairy tales specifically is that you have that sense of the arc of the story, right? You know, there's a beginning, there's a middle, and there's a definite end, and you're sort of moving toward that. And I wonder sometimes if fairy tales, as much as they teach us about moving toward something better and reaching for a better world, they maybe don't tell us as much about how to deal with that sort of uncertainty of things.
And now that I'm thinking about your book too, the way that fairy tales often yoke morality or immorality and sickness probably isn't that useful. Yeah.
No, true.
Yeah. Did you want to jump in, Mona or Sandhya?
Yeah, sure. You know, I think for me, it's you know, Bunny is all about, you know, having an imagination that's like a blessing and a curse. And I think I share that with my protagonist. And so, you know, I've gone down some pretty dark roads in my head about this, and I think I have that tendency. And I think some of that is fed by my love of fairy tale, because in as much as a number of them have happy endings, there's also quite a lot of adversity and darkness and weirdness and horror in fairy tales too. But it in some ways, it's ill-equipped me, because I am preparing for, you know, I have a lot of hope, I think, as well. I have simultaneously like all the dark feelings, and then I also have this sense of like of hope, and what you described, Amanda, kind of like moving towards restoration and maybe a different kind of like beginning. But I think I'm also prepared to some degree for the darkness because of what I tend to favor in my story. And the stories I love. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of both.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about fairy tales specifically, but being a writer in general, I think equips you to disappear into your own head for long periods of time. And I'm lucky in that I write romantic comedy, so it's a very happy place that I get to disappear into. So I think that's always useful.
So the takeaway here is that if you do want to be a writer during catastrophe, be a writer of romantic comedies. That's our advice.
Highly recommend.
Okay. I wanted to ask all of you a little bit about how you sort of came up with the specific ways that you use fairy tales in your works, because in all three of your books, it's really different in a fascinating way. So Sandhya, Of Curses and Kisses is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I was wondering, what was it specifically about Beauty and the Beast that called to you, that sort of was asking to be recast?
Like many people, I think Beauty and the Beast is one of my favorites, especially the Disney one, right, with the happy talking furniture. But I think, like, I forget who I was talking to recently, but I said I feel like in every genre, if you go, you can find a Beauty and the Beast retelling, because it's just so beloved. And yet I will never get tired of reading people's takes on it, because each one is so unique. And for me, certainly growing up loving Disney and loving fairy tales, I wanted to put a spin on it where the bibliophilic Belle got to be an Indian princess, and I had not seen that done before. So, you know, I just went crazy with it.
Yeah, that's definitely, haven't seen that one either. Yeah, there's Angela Lansbury as a teapot, but not that one.
Yeah.
And Mona, your Bunny is not a fairy tale, but it has sort of aspects with the fairy tale. There's shape-shifting, there's wish fulfillment, the sweet is sinister, and yet at the same time, the book has been so widely praised for the really brutal accuracy with which it renders a really kind of toxic relationship between a group of women, really kind of like a hate-hate relationship. And I was wondering what seems so useful to you about why was it so helpful to use these fantastical elements to talk about something that was so real and recognizable?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, I think part of the reason why fairy tales are so resonant is because they do kind of narrate emotional and psychological realities in ways that, I don't know, just really ring true on this, using symbolic language. So for me, you know, Bunny actually does sort of engage Beauty and the Beast very much because, you know, there are these rabbit bridegrooms, and there's actually a fairy tale called The Hare's Bride by the Brothers Grimm, and it has like a rabbit bridegroom, and it's a really weird story where the rabbit doesn't even transform into a man. He's just this like really creepy bunny who is stalking this poor woman. And so I don't know, I just, for me, because the book is about the creative process and because the creative process can go awry in all these really weird ways, and it's, you know, it can be just so harrowing, but it can also be just so magical. Fairy tales felt like the right kind of form to hold that weirdness and that wonder that, you know, I just think is so like married to the creative process. So it just felt like a really good cohesion for me, on top of sort of exploring the animal bridegrooms. Like Sanjay, I'm a huge fan of Beauty and the Beast as well, and all the variants. They're so different. Yeah.
Fascinating. It's true. Yes, storytelling is very much about horrible magic.
Yes, it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah. And Amanda, in Disfigured, which is this very comprehensive study of the way that fairy tales construct disability, you are careful to point out in your opening that you don't consider it a work of scholarship. There is quite a bit about your own life, but there's also so much research and so much critique that it's not pure memoir. And even though you write fiction, it's not a novel. And so I was wondering, how did you choose the particular form, the kind of mix of different ways of looking and seeing that you used to put this book together?
Well, I think I had sort of been dealing with that form, that way of like mixing personal experience with research and sort of critical analysis in essays prior to the book. So it was something that it was a form that I quite liked. And it feels in many ways, even though I started writing as a fiction writer, this actually feels more like my spiritual home in a way. Narrative nonfiction just seems to come a little bit easier for me. So moving from the essays, and then I had started writing essays and sort of thoughts down about disability and fairy tales. And when I sort of got the idea for the book about 2 years ago, my initial idea was to just write an essay because I had sort of been struck. I went for a walk in a forest and I was struck suddenly by this connection between fairy tales and disability, and how we don't traditionally see disability portrayed in mainstream media very positively or at all in many ways. But there is actually a lot of representation of disability in fairy tales as a genre specifically, but we never see it as disability or think of it as disability because it's always something that belongs to the villains. So in that sense, we sort of understand disability as like a marker of some sort of moral degradation or you know, marking of someone who is definitely not the protagonist. And so I was struck by this and I was thinking, oh, this is really interesting, but it's so obvious to me that obviously there must have been so many things written about it before. So I was just going to write an essay, and then I started doing some more research and found out that there wasn't actually a lot about that connection specifically. So I went to Coach House and pitched them an idea for the book. And I pitched it to their Exploded Views series, especially because it's a sort of very short or shorter nonfiction series that sort of sits in that space of critical analysis, plus you can bring your own experience in as an author. So I sort of felt like it would be a good mix for that series. And then as the book sort of grew larger and I started working on it more and bringing more in, my own background and personal stories started coming a little bit more to the forefront. So it's sort of, it's a long way of saying, sorry, that it sort of evolved and kind of became this organic shape. Like I didn't really, I sort of knew that I wanted it to be a personal essay writ large, I guess. But the mixture and the braiding of all sorts of different things kind of came in at later points.
Almost like writing it was sort of like traveling through the forest, I guess.
Yeah, and it was even just in terms of my own disability journey, it was very much a traveling through the forest thing for me as well, because there was a lot that I discovered about myself and my own history, and sort of going back to my sort of origins, if you will. The once upon a time of my own life as a disabled person was very much a part of writing the book, and then figuring that out, you know, is because of writing the book in the first place. So there was a very nice little sort of coming full circle for me. It's really quite lovely.
Yeah, and I have to say, with regards to your book, being given the task of, moderating a panel where two of the books kind of trade in fairy tales and the third book deconstructs them, these questions kind of wrote themselves.
There you go.
I'm gonna use Amanda's book to analyze your stories. But so I'm going to read you a quote from Amanda's book, and then I thought we could chat about how this quote relates to everyone's book, really. So in Disfigured, Amanda writes, essentially, we started telling ourselves stories pretty much as soon as we could speak. While fairy tale as a genre is a relatively recent development, it's a kind of story that has existed in various ways since the beginning of time. So what really interested me about this is the fact that it seems like all of your books really are about people telling themselves stories, and specifically telling themselves stories in order to survive the strictures of their world. So in Of Curses and Kisses, Sandia's protagonists are really trying to live out the stories that their families have written for them, and sort of going through a lot of turmoil and trying to do that. In Bunny, really the entire plot is taken up by the narrative drive, and then also the characters are constantly trying to use story to dominate each other. And in Disfigured, Amanda writes so movingly of the stories she told herself to manage the ableism that she faced. And yet, while stories are a coping mechanism for all of the people in your book, they also are what leads everyone astray. And I was really sort of wondering what you had to say about this kind of fascinating dichotomy. Is it a false dichotomy? Is it a true dichotomy? Sort of the evils and the joys of storytelling. Let's see, who should I pick? It was suggested in the very helpful moderating notes for an online festival that we sort of mentioned people by name. So now I feel like a school teacher. Do you want to start us off, Sandia?
Yeah. So for like you said, in Of Curses and Kisses, Jaya and Gray both come from very different backgrounds, but they have both been told these stories by their families ever since they were little. In Jaya's case, she's the Indian princess, and she's an heiress and the eldest daughter in the family. And so she feels a lot of responsibility to carry on family traditions, and she's very honor bound and duty bound, because she knows especially that her younger sister, is kind of off doing her own thing, dancing to, the beat of her own drummer. And so Jaya feels this added responsibility of taking care of her, and also managing, the way the family's portrayed to the press and everything like that. And that's kind of her emotional arc through the book, is how much do I want to take from what my parents told me, and how much do I want to kind of just put myself first sometimes. And then on the other side, we have Gray, who is a British aristocrat, and he has kind of been shuttled off to this elite boarding school in Colorado in the mountains by his family, who believes that he has been cursed with this ancient curse. And they think he's, just bad luck, and that his mom died in childbirth with him because of this curse. And so all his life, he's been told, you're not worth very much, and we don't want you to be part of this family. So he's got his own kind of, it's caused him to kind of withdraw into himself, and he doesn't really know where he belongs, and if he belongs anywhere. And so it was very important for me to kind of challenge, because teenagers, let's face it, they are still children, but they're on the cusp of that adulthood. They're right on the cusp of wanting to make their own mark on the world. And I think that comes with this process of, shucking off the stories that we've been told by the adults in our lives sometimes, that can be very toxic and unhealthy, and figuring out what narrative do you want to be the hero or heroine of instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is fascinating actually to think about in combination with the other books, because I think that sort of trades more in how stories can really help somebody, right? How you get to sort of write your own story. Whereas in Mona and Amanda's books, it's definitely in Mona's book, it's a little bit darker writing your own story. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think in my case, Samantha and I, my main character, we have that in common. She tells stories to herself to console herself. Her imagination is where she goes to find companionship and to find solace and to find, some sense of belonging. And then, she also tells herself stories to scare herself. She tells herself stories about the bunnies who she's very intimidated by, that they hate her and, that she hates them. And, this whole narrative, it actually starts to become her reality, and she's deep in it, and it starts to take a life of its own. And then she loses control of the story. And that's something that I share. I mean, I tell myself stories to console myself and for the sake of escape. And I also tell myself stories to scare myself. And in both cases, the stories take on lives of their own, and then they become, they kind of shape or shade my reality. And then I get lost in them. And I think that, that's the quality of a lot of writers. We kind of go down a path and then it starts to just sort of overwhelm us. And it's beautiful, but it's also terrifying. So I think for me, that sort of double-edged sword of storytelling, and how it can lead you down these, wondrous paths, but then also these kind of more nightmarish places is like the heart of what's exciting to me about storytelling, and also what is scary to me about storytelling. And Bunny sort of explores them both.
And what is it that people, that you or your characters get from telling themselves scary stories? Like what's the emotional function of that?
Well, it's thrilling, right? And it can also validate feelings that you have about yourself that maybe you're not in control of. Like Samantha sees herself as an outsider. So any negative story that she tells herself about the bunnies will validate her understanding of why she's outside. Well, they're just these horrible girls, they're so close, and they're exclusive, and, they're snobs and all of this stuff. It sort of keeps a narrative that actually protects her, as awful as it is. It's also a kind of protective mechanism for her, so that she can kind of understand what's happening. But it's also, it's a damaging one too. Like it's simultaneously protective, but it does damage. So yeah.
So yeah, like a frightening story that we can control is preferable to a reality that we can't control.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And what do you think about that, Amanda?
I think that actually the idea of the reality that we can control versus the reality that we can't control is really interesting from a social perspective too, in the ways that we use stories as reaching for both social change, but then also, keeping certain things and certain people in line. Like I think about how, one of the versions of Beauty and the Beast that was published, I think, in the 17th century. So not the original version, but one of the later ones, was written by a woman, Jeanne de Beaumont, I believe. And she was a governess, and she wrote a book that essentially contained Beauty and the Beast, but it had sort of a didactic purpose of like teaching young children and little girls how to behave. And later scholars have sort of theorized about how the tale Beauty and the Beast was something that, mothers could tell their daughters who were being sent away into arranged marriages. And essentially it had this sort of, wholesome purpose of saying, well, you're being sent away to marry someone that you don't love, that you might even despise. But, the point is he could be a good person on the inside, even though he might appear like a beast on the outside. And even though on the same token, you also have fairy tales and stories, like Jack and the Beanstalk, or The Princess and the Pea, where you have these characters who are supposedly downtrodden at the beginning, and then they triumph at the end and come away with all sorts of riches. So there's this image of a social upheaval, but it's only ever happens for that one person. So you have, like Mona was talking about, that sort of double-edged sword, right? Where you have stories that allow people ostensibly to break out of the strictures that society has imposed on them. But then you also have stories that society tells to entrench upon people certain ways of behaving and certain ways of being, right? And that then translates into the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that we sort of disseminate throughout culture about how people should behave in society. And you can see it now with the way that stories are sort of running rampant about, and moral judgments too, about, you know, people's behavior, especially with regard to the virus that's wreaking havoc right now, right? Where, you know, people who are not following the rules are being looked down upon, or people who have the virus are somehow sort of assumed to be dirty in some way, or, you know, have called it down upon themselves as a kind of moral judgment. I mean, that's, you know, we can pick these things apart, but these are also stories that people tell, right? And they're telling those stories to situate themselves in a way, like everybody has been saying, that makes them feel safe. And I think that the real question and the real sort of point of power for me in these stories is kind of understanding how stories operate in that way, and what it is about them that really has that kind of impact and influence for such, you know, they can last for so long. I mean, Beauty and the Beast was written however many centuries ago, and we're still, you know, re-envisioning that story and retelling it and taking those lessons for good and for ill. I just think, I mean, we're all storytellers, right? So we all sort of respond, I think, to those sorts of power inherent in the stories that we tell. But it's also, it's definitely a thing that you have to be careful of wielding.
Yeah, because a story that helps you cope with something you can't change is wonderful, unless it's actually something you can change, right? Then it becomes something that's poisonous. Which actually leads into our next question. So I have another quote from Disfigured. So Amanda says, whether it's the pumpkin in Cinderella or the sudden appearance of the Little Mermaid's human legs, fairy tales often pivot on something or someone becoming different at some point. But it is never society that changes. The transformation of the individual relies on fairies and magic because it is understood that society itself can't and indeed won't improve. The prevalence of magic in fairy tales serves to reinforce the class and societal structures already in place. So the reason why I bring up this quote is that, without kind of spoiling too much about what happens in Mona and Sandia's books, both your books actually subvert this element of fairy tales. And I say that because none of the characters who are sort of considered beastly by those around them succumb to the pressure to assimilate into kind of able-bodied or normative culture. And there's actually a moment where that does happen in Bunny, where there is assimilation, but sort of amusingly / horrifyingly, it's shown to be like this. It reads like horror. It's like a really alarming section of the book. And so I was wondering if either of you kind of intentionally were like, I want to subvert this part of fairy tales when you set out, or if that was just something that happened organically. Do you want to start us off, Mona?
Yeah, are you talking about the prom? With that horror, the moment of horror?
The moment, no, I was thinking about, I don't want to give too much away. There's how about this? There's a sections in the book that are told in a plural second person. Those are the parts that seemed like assimilation.
I see. Okay, so Samantha.
Yeah. So if you know, you know, and if you haven't, go read it.
Yeah, there is some transformation that's imperfect, that's like problematic, and I think that's something in fairy tale that excites me when it happens, because it does happen in fairy tale where transformation goes wrong, or it's left some kind of strange mark, or you know, there's a very obvious cost to it. And that fascinates me. In fact, The Little Mermaid was a really important story for me in thinking about Bunny. I mean, The Hair's Bride was as well, and Beauty and the Beast, but The Little Mermaid especially, because her transformation is so problematic. I mean, she goes to a sea witch, she drinks this potion, the effect on her is so violent, you know, she loses her voice, what a sacrifice. And then every step that she takes on her human legs feels like knives. And that actually informed 13 Ways as well, that notion of how physical transformation has a kind of cost. And certainly it really shaped my thinking about Samantha and how much she could ever be a bunny, really. You know, I mean, she'll lose her voice if she becomes a bunny, and she does, of course, lose her voice to some degree. Not trying to give it away. It's just like it's a moment in the book. But you know, I mean, it's a problem. I mean, she can't stay in that terrain for long, and there's a real cost to it, and there's a limit to the degree to which she can really assimilate or change. And I'm fascinated by how fairy tale plays with those limits and shows us those limits.
And it's so fascinating to think about how the same story sort of turned around can be a fairy tale or can be horror, and also how, you know, originally fairy tales weren't that far from horror. And that's something fairly new.
Yeah, with Of Curses and Kisses, I knew that the Beast was going to be the hero, and being a romance writer, certainly make a contract with the reader that the hero and heroine will always end up together. So I wanted to show in this case that the Beast was really not really a beast at all. He thought he was a beast because he had been told he was a beast, and he was perceived as a beast because of this belief in this curse. But was he really a beast underneath it all was kind of what I was trying to explore. And I think that's what I love about fairy tale retellings, is you can just do it in so many different ways. And this was kind of what I felt fit in with my particular genre and the type of story I was trying to tell, which was just really fun to play with.
And it does wind up being very subtly subversive. It's not sort of like, you know, smash the state, anything like that. Exactly. And I think that works so beautifully, especially with it being a novel for young people too.
Yeah.
Did you want to add anything to that, Amanda? I have to say, Mona, if you love The Little Mermaid, and you should, if you have not yet, you have to read Amanda's book, which talks a great deal about The Little Mermaid.
Yeah, no, I must.
No, I don't think so, actually. I feel like they both answered so beautifully that anything I could say is just gonna like, so next question.
So I was really interested in how all of you manage race and ethnicity in your books. So as Sandy has already talked about, your protagonist is from India, but also the two main characters, sort of the love interests, are on opposite sides of a colonial history. In Mona's book, it feels like a very kind of cutting portrayal of a certain type of white womanhood. And then our anti-hero protagonist is aside, she's kind of outside of that, but then she also is still connected to it in being a white woman herself. And Amanda, in your book, you're so careful to constantly kind of locate yourself as a white and a Western person. So I was just wondering, how did you choose the races of your characters? Like, how did you come up with that? What were you thinking about in particular? What sort of concerns were you playing on? Or how did you manage kind of ethnicity and regionalism in your works? Do you want to go ahead, Mona?
Yeah, sure. For me, it's something I think a lot about. And for Bunny especially, I mean, the bunnies are so white, and their whiteness is emphasized quite a lot by the protagonist, who is more kind of racially ambiguous, although it seems like she's implicated in the whiteness, and she is. So to me, it's just far more interesting in this book anyway, to other whiteness. And to kind of make that the central focus, because that's been my kind of experience with whiteness as a person who is biracial, you know, who's half white, half North African. You know, it's kind of, my race is always, it's here and it's not here, you know, and I've been identified differently by different people. So white people might identify me as white, or they might identify me as a person of color. A person of color might identify me as white, and a person of color might identify me as a person of color. So it really varies, and I find that very odd, you know. And I think that, you know, because there are entitlements attached to each identity that I don't feel comfortable claiming on either side. So that is often the territory that I end up exploring with my characters, is that sort of absence of belonging to a tribe. And then I also feel that those kinds of identifications that people place on me often says more about their relationship with race than it says about anything about me, actually. So I decided to kind of take that and play with it with Samantha. So that's why I made her focus on the whiteness, say something about her own relationship to herself, and her attaching whiteness to this exclusivity and to a sense of alienation, I think says something like very profound about her relationship to it than if I had like categorized her definitely. So she's not categorized, but the bunnies are so categorized.
Does she have a category in your mind? Do you know what her background is?
In my mind, she's half like I am.
Yeah.
But she's like kind of like this, she's a person who just fundamentally doesn't belong. And there are some like little moments in Bunny where that's kind of teased out just a little bit, but it's never like definitely stamped, because I am never definitely stamped. And I'm interested in exploring characters who have that kind of experience. It's always like a question. It's there and it's not there, but it's definitely there, but it's not there.
I love that idea of othering whiteness. Often sort of emerging writers, especially white writers, will say to me, well, how do I write a character of color? And I always say, why don't you write about whiteness? Because that's, you're primed to write about whiteness, and there isn't enough, I think, still of that making whiteness visible, which I think is, very rich territory for stories, as you clearly show. Yeah, go ahead, Sandhya.
So in mine, like I said, and like you pointed out, they were on two different sides of colonial history. I just found that really fascinating. And in the book, we come to learn that the curse has a lot to do with colonial history as well, where Gray's, this might be a minor spoiler, so if you want to read it and haven't read it, cover your ears, but yes, look away. No, but Gray's family, when the British were colonizing India, had been responsible for the theft of a very important ruby from a Hindu temple. And when that happened, Jaya's family, a matriarch in her family, ended up cursing his lineage. And he bears the brunt of that curse. Whether it's real or not is kind of ambiguous in the story. And originally, I didn't have that plot line in, because I just had this idea that I wanted to do Beauty and the Beast. And something wasn't clicking with the characters for me, and I kept going back and forth. And finally, I was like, I forget how it came to me, probably when I was, daydreaming while I was supposed to be doing something else, like making my kids a nutritious dinner or something. I was just daydreaming, and it came to me that, if you make them complete opposites in every possible way, including her being a princess and him being, from the British aristocratic line, that had something to do with this theft, that would be really compelling. And so that's kind of what I ended up doing with that.
So before that, were they like from the same place, or?
Before that, Gray was an American-born Indian person, so Indian American, essentially. Yeah. So, but it just wasn't clicking. I wrote a few dozen pages, and I was like, I don't like them together. I don't know what's wrong. And,
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Cool. And I don't know. Did you want to say something, Amanda? It's a slightly different kind of twist on the question for you, but it did really strike me the way it was so important to you to think about your own lens.
So there's sort of two parts to my answer. And I guess the first part was when I started writing the book, I was thinking initially that it would actually be a lot more of a sort of cultural criticism book than memoir. And it ended up being a little bit more on the memoir side of things. And I had this whole plan for, different chapters. We're going to focus on fairy tales from different regions around the world, because even though we're sort of inundated with the Western fairy tale in North American culture, I think fairy tales have a rich history all over the world. And, stories like Rumpelstiltskin have versions all over the world and all over all kinds of different cultures. And I really wanted to explore that and sort of, make people aware of these other stories that maybe they hadn't been exposed to before. But as I continued writing, I just started to get a little bit uncomfortable, because I wasn't as familiar with those stories as I was with the sort of Western fairy tale canon in which I'd grown up. And I didn't feel like I could do those stories justice, because I didn't have that same kind of history, and they weren't my stories to tell. So I ended up not including, I make reference to some similarities in various other cultures and how they relate to Western stories. But in the end, I just decided that I wanted to write about the fairy tales that had shaped my life and my perceptions of disability. And those ones happen to be the sort of Western white fairy tales, or sort of traditionally identified as, you know, the blonde, blue-eyed princess. And the other side of it that ended up being hugely important to me is the fact that in disability culture, there's a real white privilege problem where a lot of disability activism and disability activists, you know, have difficulty understanding or recognizing how white privilege plays into the way that we see disability, and how the ramifications of disability out in the world really have lasting impact. So I really wanted to be aware of the fact that I was writing the book from that place, from a place of real privilege in many ways, as a white person, as someone who's disabled but can also access many places that more severely disabled people can't. And I just wanted to be really upfront with that in the storytelling, and, you know, to point people in the direction of other stories and other cultures, stories, and other disability activists that they should follow. So that was sort of where that came from. Yeah.
And that's interesting that in some ways it seems both kind of a political and a structural decision, because I think part of, for me, what makes your book so rich is how much it really is shaped by your own experiences of those stories and how much you talk about that. Yeah.
Well, I think if I can just, you know, it's a rabbit hole, if you will,
rabbit hole.
Like you say, you know, exploring whiteness, exploring our own sort of stories, right? There was a real push, I think, in storytelling for a long time to write the other. And I think sometimes people forget that there's a lot of richness that maybe hasn't been explored in your own stories and your own experiences. And writing from your own experience isn't necessarily limiting a writer. It's just about how you approach that.
Yeah, it is really interesting to, you know, whenever people say, right, what you know, it seems like, I don't know, I think it can be construed as like a cop-out or a lack of imagination. It is, I think, actually very fascinating to think about how complex writing what you know can actually be, because how well do we really know ourselves, you know, like there's so deep you can go. Okay, so our question box is totally filling up. Actually, now we have 13 questions right now, which seems like a good time for me to start on my final question, and we'll hop into that question. Somebody added a question. Okay, we've got 14 now. Unfortunately, not gonna be able to get to all of them, but I'll ask my last question pretty fast. So I just had to ask this because I'm so fascinated by how art becomes a commodity. All of you have written books that are either slightly or very difficult to categorize, and that sit kind of just outside of, you know, the existing kind of generic channels for marketing a book. And I was just wondering what your experiences were with pushing your books to market. I should call on someone. Amanda.
I guess because I had pitched it to Coach House as an Exploded Views title, they sort of had this engine behind Exploded Views already, so we took advantage of that for one. And then also, it was a bit tricky, but also really freeing at the same time, because it was, you know, a book that speaks to both the disability community and the sort of fairy tale scholarship community, but can cross over between both of those, and then also speak to people who have experience of both of those things. So it actually, I mean, maybe I can't speak for my publisher. Maybe they actually found it very difficult to market. But I haven't encountered that much difficulty in talking about it. I just sort of feel like, I don't know, I feel like part of the magic of marketing a book is understanding what you want your book to say in the world, and just understanding that your book has its own particular shape. And as soon as it goes out into the world, there is no other book out there that's quite like it. And, you know, being able to talk about that and sit comfortably in that can be a real kind of magic for a writer.
So that's some good advice for anybody who's about to push a book out. I'm like, should I put you on the spot? I really am back like in the classroom. I'm like, who's hiding behind their screen?
Yeah, I'll say that it was weird for me, I think, because 13 Ways was, it was a different kind of beast, I think. It was a realist book, that was an outsider narrative like Bunny is, that did explore issues of gender and class and tensions between marginal and privileged groups, which Bunny does as well. So there's some shared territory, but in all other ways, it kind of, it's kind of in a different landscape. But it's a landscape like horror and fairy tale and the surreal. So it was tricky for me, and it's been tricky for me to get my head around talking about it, if I'm being honest, because writing it was a trip. Like, I mean, it was, I didn't understand what I was doing most of the time. I knew, I knew I was super excited about it. It was such an exhilarating experience as a writer, because I was going into new territory and I was surprising myself, which is such a joy. I was terrifying myself too, but it was a pleasure, but it was when I had come to the end, I was like, I don't know how to talk about this. I really don't. And so I think that was the tricky piece for me with Bunny, was I had to find the language for it long after I had finished.
Right.
And I think I started learning how to talk about it long after, it was done and in the hands of publicists and everything. Like, and I just get kind of tongue-tied when I talk about it, because I'm, the experience of writing it was like that. So I wonder if other writers have that kind of experience where they don't really understand what they're doing when they're doing it, and the language for it comes kind of long after. In fact, sometimes after the marketing period, when it's most useful.
Yeah, because in a lot of ways, I did a full preview of it, and we talked about this a little bit. You do sort of have to think with two separate minds. Actually, sometimes trying to think with a marketing mind when you're in the creative process is not a good idea. But then you need to think with a marketing mind afterwards.
Yeah, you absolutely need to.
You're nodding a lot, Sandhya, so I feel like it's safe.
Yeah, for me, it was a little bit different in that I knew it was still going to be a romance, but the last 3 books that I had done and had kind of become my brand, if you will, were like very light summer romantic comedies. And then I wanted to do a fairy tale, so I knew I didn't want to go like just whole hog into fantasy land. But I wanted to have just a little bit of magic in there where people could even be like, is it magic or is it not? In fact, the book has been out about 2 months now, and that's probably the #1 thing I get emailed about is, but will you tell me for real, was the curse real or not? And I always say, well, it's up to you. Like I did that on purpose. I wanted you to have your own interpretation of it. And I thought that might be a problem. I was a little nervous when we first were starting to talk about it and think about how to market the book. But it turned out to be really good. I feel like it was a good balance for my readers who were familiar with my work, where there wasn't too much magic. But for people who wanted a Beauty and the Beast retelling, it still kind of hit that spot for them. And I think it also depends on where it's being marketed, because my UK and British Commonwealth publisher actually markets it as just straight up fantasy, but my US publisher and in Canada, they do contemporary romance. So it's kind of cool to think about that too.
Yeah, and I do have to admit, I guess I didn't read the jacket very carefully. I didn't realize which fairy tale it was a retelling of until I think I was halfway through it. And then I was like, oh, so. Yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah, it's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, I figured it out after a while.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in our Q&A box. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, so here we go. What suggestions do you have for students who are interested in writing fairy tales? Okay, maybe students, or you could say emerging writers. Yeah. Is there any sort of caveats or sort of rocks you feel you left unturned, things you would suggest?
I would say read a lot of contemporary fairy tale anthologies and see what people are doing with the form, just to get some inspiration. But I would also go back and read the stories outside of the canon. There's so many. There's like, Amanda, you were talking about the 17th century French fairy tale, that Beauty and the Beast fairy tale. There's a lot of those writers, a lot of those women who wrote in that period, the Salon period, and those very subversive and different and haven't really been worked with a lot. So that could be really fun. There's a collection called Wonder Tales. That would be a good one, I think, just to kind of look at. And just any kind of collection of fairy tales that I think is outside the canon could be fun to play with. Yeah.
Any other?
I was just going to jump in real quick. One thing I will say that I think it's really fun if you're writing genre fiction that you should do, that I did and I really enjoyed, was I tried to read a Beauty and the Beast retelling in many different genres. So not just the genres I typically read, but even outside of them, just to see what people had done in different genre fiction and see how they had played with that. It was a really cool way. And it kind of gave me not just inspiration, but also confidence that you could tell the same story like billions of different ways. So don't feel like, you're going to be doing the same thing that someone else has done.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to hop back into the question box.
Oh yeah, it's filling up, isn't it?
It is.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah. There's a lot in there. Okay, here we go. So someone says, Amanda's point about white privilege and disability reminds me of Desmond Cole's work on intersectionality. Do the authors feel that the genre of fractured fairy tales, ooh, I like this, it's a genre, lends itself to intersectionality? I think we might have already answered that question, but does anybody want to really hit the nail on the head? I think yes.
Yes.
You want to say something, Amanda?
No, basically, yes. Yeah, that boils it down. Yes.
Oh, this is so interesting. Okay, can you share your writing process? How do you begin a new novel? Do you prepare an outline or character descriptions beforehand?
Oh dear.
What do you do?
I cry a lot.
That's essential. Crying is.
Yeah. It's funny. Someone, I forget who, I was speaking with a couple of years ago, and they were talking about writing as building a house. And I was like, yes, that's true. But when you're writing a book, it's like you're building a house and you finish one house and you think, great, I know how to build a house. But then you get to the new house and all of a sudden you're building a house with glass. And you built your previous house with wood, and
it's a houseboat,
It's a houseboat, exactly. So you're building the same sort of structure, but you're working with entirely different materials, and it requires a whole new way of re-understanding things. For me, I do tend to work from outlines, but they don't come right away. So I usually start with a whole bunch of scattered ideas that sort of get tossed around and written down for a couple of months. And then once I'm maybe about 6 months to a year into a project, that's when an outline usually comes in useful for me. And then, whether or not I stick with the outline, well, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. So unfortunately, I don't know if any of that is helpful at all. But I do think that each particular book has its own process. And maybe they're all very similar and maybe they're all very different, but each book is its own, its own animal. And I don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. I think that's helpful in like openness to chaos. I always say to writers who are starting out, if it feels bad and what you're writing seems awful, you're on the right track. That's what
so true. I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum as Amanda. I have a very specific plot, outline, synopses, process, and it also depends on if the book has already been sold or if I'm working on a book that hasn't been sold yet. I'm just kind of developing the idea for myself. I tend to also reach out to people like my agent or my editors and say, hey, what do you think of this? and see what sometimes they're like, you have gone off the rails. No. But other times it's like, yeah, that's great. So a little different, but I like it. So that kind of can bolster my confidence or help me see if I'm on the right track or not.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tend to share early drafts with friends. Usually I get a few readers that I trust, and then I'll share, and that really helps with confidence if they're responding to it. But those early days, I do tend to kind of do something in between where I like just having sort of a basic idea of where I'm going. And if I know that, and I know like maybe I'm working like just one or two scenes ahead, like in mind, those kinds of like plans are very useful for me. So just kind of knowing a little bit about what's ahead, so that there's still room for some surprise is good. But I do like to have a sense of like where I'm going ultimately. I'll usually have a final scene in mind. And when I have that final scene in mind, I'm really excited because I'm like, okay, I know where I have to sort of head. Yeah.
Here's, oh my gosh, this question box. I feel like one of those old school radio hosts. I'm like, the phone lines are lighting up. So here's, I like this question. What have you learned from writing surrealism or fairy tales that you will take with you to other genres?
Oh, I can answer that right away. You don't have to explain everything. I love that. It's fantastic, that kind of freedom. That's what I love about fairy tales. That's how they work. The magic and the wonder is so wonderful because it's not grounded in any kind of reason or explanation. It's not weighed down by that. It can be wonderful because we don't fully understand it. And so I think that's kind of that's something to lean into with fairy tale, is to kind of resist the impulse to explain when you're writing, which is actually very difficult to do. It's surprisingly difficult to not want to explain, like, you know, the workings of whatever wonder or magic you're presenting. So that, to me, it's liberating, you know, to think about entering that landscape. You're kind of dealing with emotional and psychological reality, and you can explore that by moving beyond reason. Yeah.
Then how do you decide what has to be explained and what doesn't have to be explained?
Yeah, that's for like usually outside readers help with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Does anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I would echo what Mona said. I think a couple of years ago, I was writing a short story, and there was a particular fantasy-esque, fairy tale-esque problem that I was trying to think about. There were these hyenas that walked and talked, and I was like, okay, you know, so is it like a Rats of Nim situation, you know, where they injected with something? And I was puzzling, and then all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to explain. And if people don't like it, there are plenty of other books they can buy at the bookstore. And it was so wonderful to just suddenly have this realization of like, you're not beholden, Amanda, to having to explain everything all the time. And I think for me, what I've subsequently found in the stories that strike me the most, and the writers that I'm most enamored by, is that they really have that kind of confidence in not explaining that just kind of carries you right through the narrative. There's there's something really exciting about that I would encourage people to, you know, let themselves feel and explore.
And I think maybe this question kind of connects to what we're talking about. I'm curious about how fairy tales intersect with genre. Fairy tales arise in horror, romance, and fantasy. So in your writing, has it been challenging to balance the expectations of genre while also retelling fairy tales? I'm always interested actually in questions of expectations of genre. I find that very tricky to navigate because I think people go to certain types of books because they're looking for something familiar, but the expectation is that it has to be familiar, but also like nothing people have ever read before, right? Yeah.
Well, I'll just say that I think I usually go regardless of genre with the character, you know, and what feels true to the character's journey is how I'm going to kind of wind things up with that character. But I do think about genre. With this book, I thought about fairy tale quite a lot, but I felt like I had some permission with fairy tale because yes, there are a number of happy endings, but there are also a number of strange endings. There are a number of unhappy endings. In fairy tale, we don't read those stories as often as we do the happy ending ones, but they exist, and that makes the fairy tale, world so fascinating to me, is that there are these different outcomes. And then, with horror readers are actually pretty open. They surprise me with like they're not so rigid in their expectations. It has been my experience as a horror reader and as encountering readers who like horror too. So there, I definitely feel the expectation, but I think given the story I was telling, it felt okay. Like I felt safe, kind of thing, going where the story went, and also kind of being mindful of that. Yeah.
And Sandhya, you said that romance writers make a contract with the reader that the couple has to stay together. Is that something that's constraining when you mix in fairy tales, or is that just something you're happy to go with?
No, I was actually thinking as Mona was speaking that I probably had the easiest time of anyone on this panel because Beauty and the Beast, especially like the Disney version, is such a love story that, I didn't have to do too much work to make it work with romance. I think what was more challenging for me was layering the characters and making them really three-dimensional and how to make them stand out from the typical Beauty and the Beast Disney movie that we are all familiar with. And that's where I really, had to do a lot of thinking, like I talked about earlier. But I highly recommend character sheets. If you guys are out there who are writers, don't use them. I highly recommend them.
What's a character sheet? Not that I don't know.
It's basically like ask you all these questions about the character. The ones I use, I really love because they ask, what is a secret that your hero has that no one else knows? What would he be embarrassed if other people knew? Those kinds of really digging deep kind of questions.
Interesting. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to go to the bottom. Oh, here we go. This is a good final question. What are you working on right now? Oh, awkward silence.
We're all so polite.
Mona, I actually saw, I think just the other day that you announced a new book. Do you want to tell us about your new book?
Yeah, I just sold it to Simon & Schuster. It's called All's Well, and it's kind of a little bit based on All's Well That Ends Well, but also Macbeth. So it's kind of engaging with Shakespeare. It's about a drama teacher who has chronic pain, but nobody believes her. And she strikes this bargain with dark forces to make sure that her play goes on. So I'm really happy to see it have a home, and it's going to be published by Hamish Hamilton in Canada.
Wonderful, congratulations. So it sounds like you've gone back down the fantastical sort of rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a little bit of 13 Ways because it deals with body to some degree, and like it's very kind of rooted in that kind of realism of dealing with pain and dealing with not being believed and the medical industry and all of that. And but it's also got this surreal element because it has, the element of Macbeth and the dark forces.
Okay, so I guess I'll go next. Amanda and I are just staring at each other. Who's gonna go?
That's a good thought. Yeah. And what a staring contest over Zoom.
But it's a polite staring contest. Yeah, I have so many books coming. I have 2 this year, 2 next year,
Oh my goodness.
and 1 the following year. But I'll tell you about my adult foray, I guess. I have an adult romantic comedy coming out in February of next year, February 2nd, which is about 2 rival app developers who are completely always sabotaging each other, and it's an enemies to lovers romance. So I'm super excited to dip my toe into the adult waters.
Is that your first adult novel?
Yes, it's my first adult with St. Martin's.
Oh, amazing. Okay. And Amanda.
So my next book is a novel, and it's coming out in February of next year with Random House in Canada. And it's sort of a dystopian fairy tale. It's about a woman who falls in love with a centaur. And then I'm working on a collection of short stories as well. And I'm mostly at the crying stage with that.
That's so interesting because you said creative nonfiction. You realized it was your spiritual home. So maybe you're a glutton for punishment. Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for this wonderful discussion. I think it may be time for our Kahoot. Am I right?
Yes.
Everyone. So once again, we'd like to thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for that wonderful conversation from Taya Lim, Mona Awad, Amanda Leduc, and Sandhya Menon. We're going to transition into our closing remarks and trivia now. So even though our authors are leaving, we don't want you to go anywhere just yet, unless you're going on social media to share how much you enjoyed this event. Thank you so much to our sponsors who graciously continue to support us as we transitioned into this online model. And we'd also like to let you know that copies of the author's books are available through Another Story Bookshop at anotherstorybookshop.ca. We also have content from our Fold Challenge and previous festivals at audible.ca/fold. If you enjoyed yourself today, please consider ways you might continue to support and share the word about this event and other events that are coming up. While everything is free, you're also welcome to donate to the Fold Foundation at Canada Helps. So once again, thanks so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you at other events. And now JL is going to come on and start today's trivia where you can earn free books.